Hi, this is Val with Living Divine. If you are new to my channel, welcome. And if you've been here before, well, welcome back. Ron and I were recently talking about hiring staff for the restaurant and the kind of staff we would want to hire for the restaurant. One of the things I pointed out to him is the importance of making sure we train staff on the particular position that they're being hired to do. And of course, his response was, of course I'll have experience. We're not going to hire anybody without experience or without training them. So one of the things I thought about when he was saying that is there was a time that I got hired for a position because I was a director already, but I wasn't trained for the position I was hired to do. So I want to tell you about that and the importance of actually hiring and training staff. Okay, so I got hired a couple of years ago or several years ago. I was thinking about going back to school, going to graduate school. And I did not want to take out a loan. So what I decided to do was actually get like a weekend job. I was working the weekday, but actually finding a weekend job so I could save money and just pay for it, outright. So I applied for many jobs and didn't even care what the title was. I just looked at the pay. Like if it paid enough, I applied for it and just kept it moving. I applied for tons of jobs. So it was one of those applications or one of those work search things that you could put in like a general application and then you could just start applying, click apply, click apply. So someone called me, and let's say the person that called me was from Bank of Bubba. And I can't tell you their real name because they still might be looking for me, but let's call them Bank of Bubble. So the hiring manager called and said, they saw my application and they were interested in interviewing me for the position. And the funny thing is, I honestly don't remember applying for this job at all. So I asked him, can you tell me a little bit about it? And to be real honest, I just want to know how much it paid, but I had to, seem, interested in the job or whatever. So he basically said that I would be supervising a group of staff on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, and just making sure that they're complying with bank's policies, procedures, things of that nature. That sounds simple enough, no problem. So I go in on the first Saturday, and it turns out that actually I was hired to be in the mailroom, which is where all the checks came at that time and all the correspondence or whatever came in reference to the bank. Mostly checks, people paying bills, things of that nature, or depositing checks or whatever. So I was hired for that, and I was like, okay, so they have me as like can't remember the title they gave me, but I'm gonna just call it audit supervisor, right? So they hired me for audit supervisor. So I actually was in training for 2 days to actually go over what kinds of things I'm supposed to be looking for, ensure that the staff are actually reading the checks, making sure that the number that someone spelled out is the same number that they wrote out in numeric numbers. So making sure that they correspond so you can put the right information in the system. No problem. That's easy, right? So we had to take a little test to make sure that we knew, kind of what we're supposed to be looking for. I got like a 90 plus on the test. Yay, I'm ready to go. So throughout this whole training period, one of the guys that was training me would continue to say, it was a couple of people in the room. I was the only manager that they hired, a supervisor that they hired, but it was a couple of people being trained at the same time. So every time something would happen, as far as the training stuff, he would keep coming back to me and say, well, Val, you have a degree. Can you tell us, what the answer to, I don't know, this is? And I was thinking, okay, so what is this? What is the deal with this dude continuing to come to me and call on me because I have a degree, which has nothing to do with banking. It clearly has nothing to do with being able to read off a number. But, I'm intelligent. I have no problem with answering it, but he just kept saying it. So I'm thinking, okay, so does nobody else in here have a degree? Like, what is his issue with degrees? Now, mind you, he was not my hiring manager. He's actually somebody that I would ultimately supervise, but he was training me. So on one of the breaks, one of the staff, I went into the break room or whatever, and as staff gossip, and I didn't know any of them. So they just kind of introduced themselves, really friendly people. And they kept saying, well, the guy that's training you, if he seems a little salty, it's because he applied for the position that you got. And several other people in this area applied for the position, and then they hired you in. And they had experience, but they hired you in because you have a degree. So I was like, okay. That's why he keeps saying, keeps calling on me in reference to the degree. And my degree was business and political science. So it had nothing really to do with what I was doing at the bank, which, but it is what it is. So I said, okay, it makes sense. So that first weekend was great, no problem, other than, him continuing to call me or whatever in reference to this degree. So the next weekend I come in and he's like, okay, so Val, this is what we're going to do. Now I'm supposed to shadow this guy for 4 weekends, which, in a row. So he's like, what we're going to do this weekend is you're going to actually go into the room, and I don't forget what they call this room, but you're going to actually, it's where the mail actually comes in. Like all the mail comes into this big room before it's sorted and kind of put it on kind of a conveyor belt for people to start opening the letters, looking at the checks and things of that nature. He was like, well, you're going to go into this room and I'm going to give you a quick training on what you need to do. And then we're going to let you take over for, an hour or so. Okay, that's simple. It just can't be that hard. So we go into this room and they have these big bins of mail. And it is thousands and thousands of letters, So he said, what you're supposed to do is go in there and look at the bins and say, okay, so how many letters, like at the start of my shift, how many letters do we have in this bin? So I'm thinking, there's thousands of letters. How am I going to know how many letters do we have in this bin? He said, well, just give a guess. He's like, what you do is you just push the letters way back to the back. And if they can't move, it might be, let's say 3,000. If they move a little bit, it might be 1,500. And I'm thinking, okay, so nothing about that is accurate. Nothing, because it could be a thick letter, it could be a smaller letter, unless we're looking just guesstimates, I guess. I could say, there's a bin and a half or something of that nature, but he wanted numbers. He wanted, strong numbers in reference to how many letters was in this bin. So I'm not understanding this, right? Like, I know you can't accurately just look at a bin and tell me how many letters are in there, but I can't give you a guesstimate if you're saying it takes 1,000 letters to fill it up, or whatever. So ultimately, that's how it started. So he said, well, and the reason that is so important in reference to the numbers is the staff that was outside of this mailroom. They're the ones going to have to open the letters, look at the checks, things of that nature. And they have so many letters they have to do per hour. And if they don't, then we'll have to deal with them as far as their accuracy. So what I did not want, and I was like, is that I give you an incorrect number. Maybe it's too high. I don't know. And they don't meet the bar and they're in trouble, right? I know that I'm not giving accurate numbers, not based on what you just trained me on. Look at the bin and just tell kind of how many letters are in this bin. So I was like, okay. So I'm thinking surely it must be something else to this, but I know this dude kind of have an issue because he wanted this position. It is what it is. I'll figure it out. So he puts me in this room, and the guy that's already in this room working, he said, okay, so I'm going to show you what I do. And he gave me like 15 minutes of training. He said, so I look at the bin, give a number. He's like, but before we get to that part, all the letters that are coming in, you're going to have to put all the letters that are coming in into this bin, and you got to put it in the right bin. I'm like, okay, so that's something different. Now, that's the second thing I got to do. I got to now move letters and put them in the bin and then give you an estimate of how many letters are in, each bin, whatever. So I said, okay, no problem. It seemed pretty simple, right? I mean, even though to me, you can't guess accurately what the number is, but if that's how they do it, because I know if I can't guess, you surely are not guessing an accurate number. But I still didn't want the people outside that were actually going through the letters to get penalized in reference to not moving fast enough from, or whatever the situation was. So he's the guy that's in there that's training me for all of 15 minutes says, I'm about to get ready to go on my lunch break. I was told by John, which is the guy that wanted the position that I got, that you would take over this next hour and then I would be back. Okay, no problem, whatever. It can't be that hard. They're putting me in a bank with all these checks and I just started. It cannot be that difficult. They close the door and the checks or the letters start coming. And y'all, they start coming fast. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen, I'm an old I Love Lucy fan. And when she was in the cookie factory and those, not cookie factory, the chocolate factory, and the chocolates kept coming too fast, so she started eating them and then putting them on her hat and in her clothes. So that's kind of what I felt like. These letters start coming at me, and y'all, they start coming fast. So, you know, then I was like, okay, this dude is setting me up to fail already. I have no clue. Like, when they were giving me training, the letters were coming slower. When they closed that door, I know they sped up those letters. The letters start coming really fast. So the letters start dropping off of the little conveyor belt. I couldn't even get them to the VIN box in time, right? So I start taking the letters because, you know, you ain't going to clown me. You know, I don't care, whatever. I just start taking the letters and doing them. So if one fall, you know, I'd hurry up and sort, and then another letter falls, and I was like, shit. You know, so letters still coming, and I was like, oh, shit. You know, so I'm just, So I'm, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I'm putting all these, you know, letters in. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I feel so discombobulated, and there's nobody around to ask for help because the other people are outside. The manager that was supposed to train me, the guy that was in the room, they're gone. Now I have a shirt full of letters. I'm still moving letters. Don't have a clue what's going on. Like, literally, and they're coming fast. They're just coming fast. And okay. Just keep on. Like, literally, I went from like a real, you know, a small chick to kind of fluffy, right? So I'm sitting there and I got all these letters and just hoping they don't see them, like on top of my shirt or whatnot. So I'm stuffing these letters, the ones that I cannot get into the bin quick enough. And I'm getting nervous. Like, I'm about to be arrested because I know these checks in here, right? So I'm about to be arrested. I'm getting nervous and I don't even know what to do because I'm stuck in this room and these letters are coming quickly. So lunch is finally over and I am nervous because the guy comes back from his shift. And he asked me, he's like, how'd it go? Great. Oh my goodness, it went really well. So he's like, well, go ahead and go to lunch and, you know, take your break. I leave out of that room and I am nervous because I know I had to have probably 12 to 15 letters stuck in my shirt, bent up, stuck in my shirt. I go to lunch and I go to my car because I am shaking and I'm nervous trying to figure out what I'm going to do with these letters because I got to get these letters back in the bank now. And I can't admit that I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And I honestly think they set me up to fail and think it was funny. You know, don't be laughing at me. Like, that is not funny to me, right? So I'm feeling some kind of way, but still, I got to get the letters back in the bank. So I'm sitting in the car, I'm shaking, don't know what to do. I take my lunch bag, and you're not supposed to bring your lunch bag on the floor. But my thought is, I am new. I'll just pretend I forgot. I take the letters out. Straighten them up as much as possible. I got you. I got it. And I put them in my lunch bag, right? So I take my lunch bag and I go, after lunch is over, I go back to the floor and just see how things are going. So finally, the guy, John, that really has an issue with me having this particular position, he comes and he's like, so I didn't get a chance to talk to you before you went to lunch. How did it go? I said, it went really well. You know, I just wanted to go and check and make sure that I left everything in order because I have to get back into that room because the room that I was in where the letters came in, it's a locked room and you have to kind of get permission to go in there because, you know, that's where the checks are or whatever. So I was like, I need to get back into this room, make sure I left it, you know, appropriate or whatever. So the guy opened the door so I can come back in. And mind you, I still have this bag, my lunch bag, and they didn't notice, thank God. So I'm sitting here with my lunch bag, and the letters are like this. So I'm holding my lunch bag, and the letters kind of like this, but my lunch bag is over the top so they can't see them. And I go, and I just drop the letters, right? And I'm looking around or whatever. I was like, oh, my goodness, what is this on the floor? So the guy, John, looks at the other guy, and he was like, dude, we're going to get in trouble for all these letters being on the floor. So he picks it up. He was like, it must be something wrong with the belt because they're all bent up. They're all bent up and wrinkled and whatnot. So it must be something wrong with the belt. I was like, whew, I'm glad that didn't happen when I was here. I wouldn't have known what to do. So after that, they took me out of the room. I was through with that room for that day. Still nervous because these letters are now wet because I don't sweat on them. I'm all nervous. What I know is, yeah. So I get out and go up front, you know, and the guy's talking to me, and still he's making these comments. He was like, well, you know what? You had a degree. I knew you could handle being in that room. And he did it with a funny smile, right? Then he realizes I still have my lunch bag on me. And he was like, well, you know you're not supposed to be on the floor with that. I was like, oh, my goodness, I forgot. I am so sorry. Y'all, I went out, took off the little badge they gave me, got my stuff out of the locker, and took my butt home. I was through. I was through. So I get home and I tell my husband, you know what? I thought about it. When we talked earlier about just, you know, it'll be too much working all weekday and then working all weekend. It was just too much and just not hanging around the family. I think you're right. You know, I think you're right. I think it's just too much. I really need to hang out more with the family and not try to work 7 days a week. So I think what I'm going to do is just forget it. I'm going to just quit. The family's just too important to me. So I'm going to just go ahead and quit that job. My husband was like, that's a good idea. I really think that it's just too much. It's just too much work. We'll do what we have to do to pay for your graduate school. So I said all that to say, clearly I did not go back. That was the last day that I had that job. But with that said, I really know the importance of making sure that your staff is properly trained for the jobs you hired them to do. Because again, people be lying on resumes. I didn't put anything about the bank on my application. But even if I did, you'd still have to train me for the particular job you hired me to do. So just giving you guys that, I hope you have a wonderful weekday. Find a reason to laugh. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will absolutely see you in the next video.